Every year, millions of people set goals. New Year's resolutions, quarterly targets, big dreams they swear this time will be different, and almost all of them fail. Not because the people are undisciplined, not because the goals were wrong. There's one thing nobody teaches you about why goals actually stick, and once you see it, everything about the way you approach your goals changes. I'm Brian Nichols, founder of Solving for Change, and I want to talk about a pattern that was quietly discouraging some of the most driven people I've ever coached. You probably know the cycle, and just like me, you've probably lived it. You set a goal. Maybe it's January 1st. Maybe it's a Monday. Maybe it's after a hard conversation with someone who told you the truth. And in that moment, the goal feels real. It feels urgent. You mean it this time. And for a little while, it works. You're consistent. You're making progress. You can almost see where this is going. And then something happens. Change hits. Life interrupts. The urgency fades. The progress slows. And slowly, so slow you almost don't even notice, the goal moves from something you're doing to something you're going to do someday. And then it's just gone. And what do most people do at that point? The same thing they've done every time before. They blame themselves. I have no discipline. I always do this. Why can't I ever follow through? I want to offer you a different diagnosis. Because here's what I found after coaching leaders and high performers for decades. The goal wasn't the problem, and you weren't the problem either. The problem is that almost no one teaches you what actually makes a goal stick. And until you know that, you can set all the goals you want, and unfortunately, the results will be the same. Here's the reframe. Most people treat goal setting as an event. You sit down, you write the goal, you feel good about it, and then you wait for motivation to carry you there. But motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. And here's what the most consistent people understand that most people don't. The goal is not the destination. The goal is who you're becoming. Let me say that again. The goal is not the destination. The goal is who you're becoming. Because if you don't become the person who naturally does the thing, if you don't close that identity gap, the goal will never hold. You can run a marathon on a piece of paper all you want. But until you start thinking of yourself as a runner, until you build the identity of someone who runs, the goal has no foundation to stand on. And one of the most stunning illustrations of that principle didn't happen on January 1st. It happened on a cold afternoon in Oxford, England in May of 1954. For as long as anyone could remember, the 4-minute mile was considered impossible. Not just difficult, not just extremely challenging, medically, scientifically, categorically impossible. Experts published studies. Doctors testified. The human body, they said, simply could not sustain that pace for that distance. And for years, decades, nobody ran it. Not because nobody tried, because no one believed they could be the kind of person who did. And then on May 6th, 1954, a 25-year-old medical student named Roger Bannister laced up his shoes at Oxford University and ran a mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. The impossible was done. Now here's the part of the story I find fascinating. 46 days later, 46 days, an Australian runner named John Landy broke Bannister's record. Within a year, several runners had broken the 4-minute mile. Within a decade, it had become a standard that elite milers were simply expected to reach. Within a decade. What happened? Did human beings suddenly evolve? Did training methods transform overnight? No. What changed was a belief, a collective identity shift. Once Roger Bannister proved that a human being could be a sub 4-minute miler, once people could see that it was possible to be that person, the barrier dissolved. Not because the goal changed, because who people believed they could become changed. A goal of running a 4-minute mile had existed for years. What was missing wasn't effort. What was missing was the identity of someone who could do it. And that's not a story about running. That's a story about every goal you've ever set and wondered why it didn't hold. So if the real issue is identity, who you're becoming, what do you actually do about it? Here are 3 things that change everything. Number 1, stop solving the goal, solve the gap underneath it. Most goals are symptoms of something deeper. For instance, I want to lose 30 pounds is a goal. I don't know how to manage stress without food is probably the actual problem. I want to be more productive is a goal. But I've never had a system that survives a hard week is probably the actual problem. And until you address what's actually underneath the goal, the real gap, the real obstacle, no amount of goal setting will hold. The goal keeps breaking because the foundation was never built. So before you write your next goal, ask this question first. What would actually have to adjust about how I operate for this to become my new normal? That question gets you closer to the real work than the goal itself ever will. Number 2, a goal without a daily address is just a wish. Goals set in January with no daily connection become good intentions by February. That's not pessimism, it's just how goals work. The difference between a goal and a wish is a daily practice, something that connects you to the goal every single morning before the world starts making demands of you, before the urgent crowds out the important, before you're already reacting. For me, and for the members of Solving for Change, that practice is called My Daily Compass. It's a structured 5-minute practice that does one specific thing. It keeps what matters most in front of you every single day, so your goals don't drift back into someday the moment life gets loud. I'll do a full dedicated video on exactly how My Daily Compass works, but the principle is simple. If your goal doesn't have a daily address, it doesn't have a real home. So, starting today, give it one. Number 3, become the person first, then watch the goal follow. This is the one that changes everything. And it's the lesson Roger Bannister gave us, whether he knew it or not. Stop asking, how do I achieve the goal? Start asking, who is the person who achieves this naturally? And how do I start becoming them? Because when you close that identity gap, when you start operating as the person whose goal this already is, the behavior follows. Not because you willed it, because that's just who you are now. You don't have to become a completely different person overnight. You just have to start making the choices that person would make. Today, not someday, today. One decision, one practice, one right step. That's how the identity shifts. That's how goals stop being wishes and start becoming your story. Before we close this out today, I want to make sure you leave with more than just ideas. If what I've been describing resonates, if you've set goals before and watched them quietly disappear, I want to invite you to take a free assessment at solvingforchange.com. It's designed to help you identify specifically where the gap is showing up in your life right now. Not the goal, the gap underneath it. Where you're strong, where you're held back, and what your clearest next step actually is. It literally takes about 2 minutes. It costs nothing, and it gives you a personalized picture of exactly where to start. Not a generic answer, your answer. The link is in the description below, and if you're watching on your TV, scan the QR code on screen and take it right from your phone. And if you want to go deeper, a Solving for Change membership is built around weekly Masterclass training videos from a live coach designed to help you solve the exact challenges that change creates in your work and in your life. My Daily Compass is the daily practice. The Masterclasses are the deep work. Together, they build the system. Here's what I want to leave you with today. You're not someone who can't hit their goals. You're someone who hasn't yet become the person those goals belong to. That's a completely different problem. and it's a solvable one. Roger Bannister didn't just run fast. He became someone the world had never seen before. And in doing so, gave everyone else permission to become that too. Your goals don't need a better plan. They need a better version of you showing up for them every single day. The only constant in life is change, but who you're becoming, that part is yours to decide. I'll see you in the next video. If this landed for you today, go ahead and subscribe. We've got a lot of ground to cover together, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. If you know someone who's been setting the same goal over and over and wondering why it never holds, send this to them. It might be the reframe they've been waiting for.